Oh, the wonder that is the ORs. What exactly is the ORs and why do you care?
Hold on to your butts.
And let me tell you about the short story, yeah right, of the miracle that is the ORs, or the official records of the War of the Rebellion. So, the official records of the Union and Confederate armies in the War of the Rebellion, commonly referred to as the official records, or the ORs, is the most extensive collection of American Civil War records available to date. So it includes selected, and remember I said the word selected, we'll get back to that here in a little bit, selected first-hand accounts and orders, reports, maps, diagrams, and correspondence drawn from the official records of both the Union and Confederate armies. So the collection and the consolidation of the records began in 1864 before the war was even over. However, no special attention was paid to the Confederate records until just after the capture of Richmond in 1865, when, with the help of Confederate General Samuel Cooper and, of course, the Union Army Chief of Staff Henry Halleck, began the task of collecting and preserving the archives of the Confederacy that had survived the war. Now let's fast forward a year to 1866, and a joint resolution of Congress authorized the compilation and publication under the War Department of what we would eventually call the official records, or again, the ORs. Eventually, 17 Secretaries of War were involved in the entire process. In 1877, 11 years after the war, Army Captain Robert Scott was appointed by Secretary of War as Director of the Publications Office. And what a job this is. Can you imagine being told to put everything together for 4 years of war when you have regiments and reports that were thousands of pieces of paper daily through 4 years? That's crazy. So also, as a little side note, Captain Scott's name appears on each section in each publication of the ORs under the rank of Brevet Lieutenant Colonel of the 3rd U.S. Artillery. So that's kind of interesting, from Captain to Brevet Lieutenant Colonel, again with the 3rd U.S. Artillery. But either way, he is dedicated to get the ORs done. So, after lighting a fire under the Publications Office, Brevet Lieutenant Colonel Scott came out with the first publication in 1881, which is 20 years after the start of the war. And the publications kept going and publishing volumes up until 1901. When finally finished, and finish is a loose term, the records consisted of 138,579 pages with 1,006 maps and diagrams assembled in 128 books organized as 70 volumes grouped in 4 different series. So out of the first series that they published, the first series was so massive that it was found to be completely impractical to make each volume a single book. So you'll notice that volumes take up individual parts. Seriously, this project is mind-boggling. This is gigantic. Yeah, I can imagine being in charge of this project. What is Series 1? Well, Series 1 makes up the vast majority of the ORs and covers the military operations of the war, thus probably one of the most commonly read sections of the entire series. Series 1 includes formal reports, both Union and Confederate, starting from the first seizures of the United States property in the beginning of the war from the southern states, and of course all of the military operations in the field throughout the war, with correspondence, orders, and returns that run through the entire end of the war. So there's too much to say about Series 1. I mean, like I said before, Series 1 is probably the most commonly read, commonly referred to, and researched series of the entire war. But moving on, we have Series 2, 3, and 4. What exactly was in Series 2? Well, Series 2 includes the entire POW scene, and it includes the correspondence, orders, reports, and returns, both Union and Confederate, relating to the prisoners of war and to state or political prisoners. Political prisoners. So now on to Series 3, it covers the correspondence, orders, reports, and returns of the Union, including all the correspondence with the Confederate officials. Of course, none of the records relating specifically to the previous subjects of the ORs like in Series 1. It includes the annual and special reports of the Secretary of War, the General-in-Chief, and the chiefs of several staff corps and departments. So think of Series 3 as the political correspondence in the Union. Series 3 also includes the calls for troops and the correspondence between the national authorities and the several state authorities and how they were communicating together, which is very interesting, especially between Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana to the federal government in D.C. Lots of drama there if you want to read it. Which, by the way, is super interesting, especially between Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois to the federal government in D.C. Lots of drama there if you want to get some tea.
I have tea. I have acquired some gossip.
And finally, Series 4 covers covers the correspondence, orders, reports, and returns of the Confederate authorities, similar to the Union materials in Series 3, but excluding the correspondence between Union and Confederate authorities, which is in Series 3 already. And just when you think it's all done, nope. A companion volume, which is the atlas to accompany the official records of the Union and Confederate armies, was published in 1895. It includes the maps and military operations, which is 175 plates, a topographic map of the area of operations, which is 26 individual plates, and some drawings of weapons, uniforms, insignia, and flags.
But wait, there's more.
A final comprehensive index was published in 1901 with more additions and corrections. And so there we have it. According to the official publication dates of the ORs, that's where the story ends.
But wait, there's more.
So fast forward 65 years to 1966, and the National Archives published a 5-volume set comprising an arguably better index to the ORs. They called it The Military Operations of the Civil War, a guide index to the official records to the Union and Confederate armies, 1861 to 1865. Now, after all that being said, exactly how accurate or comprehensive is the ORs? Are they 100% comprehensive and cover everything? No. Are they 100% accurate? Nope. But at the same time, don't discount Captain Scott or Lieutenant Colonel Scott yet. Just the sheer volume and the bulk alone of material involved prevented any meticulous wholesale review of the copying process by the editors responsible for the publication. There were, of course, errors made during the copying process that didn't get corrected before they published it. But honestly, it's a wonder there aren't any more errors than there really are. Of course, with the reputation of war heroes at stake, we must consider that the editorial, quote, tinkering with the text of documents is a possibility, especially with the subject matter that might be tinkered with. Dan Sickles comes to mind. So when reading the ORs, you must keep in mind and watch out for not just typographical errors or transcription errors, but also editorial errors as well. Some editorial mistakes are inconsequential, but yet others are actually pretty big. The total sum of the mistakes may take you off on a rabbit trail that makes you think and totally discount the ORs, especially if you look at the National Archives and all the other notes and things they actually did not include in the ORs. But again, take it in totality that the ORs are an extremely valuable tool when conducting research on your favorite regiment or ancestor. It's interesting to note is that because of the enormous volume of material, the lengthy time period of the collection and publication, and the constant and continuing process of correction by, get this, veterans on both sides still living contemporaneously, the records are perhaps the most intensely peer-reviewed documentation in historical publication. Historians have argued that some of the modifications made years after the events have decreased the accuracy of the records and were made simply to enhance the personal reputations or denigrate the reputations of rivals. And another thing I find interesting is that those of you who pored over the correspondence, battlefield reports, or other reports that were not included in the ORs makes you wonder that those who got everything gathered, what was exactly their criteria in saying, yes, this is important for the ORs versus, nope, that's not in the ORs. Now, it does make you wonder a little bit, but again, that's what I love about research. That's what I love about getting into primary records, and what the ORs allow you to do is it's just this gigantic compilation of primary records, the original in the hand of the primary documents, the reports that the guys wrote, all compiled by date or by battle or by area, by genre. The ORs are definitely a tool to use for even not just the professional researcher, the Civil War buff. Even for us hobby historians, reenactors, living historians, or just genealogists wanting to get a deeper connection to our ancestors, the ORs are such an invaluable tool. But even sitting here as an armchair quarterback looking at what the ORs are, even with their accused editorial or, quote, missing information, they're still an awesome resource for those who want to deep dive into Civil War history. So with all of this being said, where does this leave us? Well, the ORs simply are the largest compilation of first-hand accounts of battlefield reports from the officers and generals who were there in the field in the first place. Combine that with the ease of keyword searching the text thanks to Google Books, Cornell University, and others, one can easily read and feel the fog of war in real time, quote unquote real time, and read the false reports coming in that may have confused leadership, in addition with the truth that's coming in from the other side of the battlefield, which is the entire point of doing Civil War research. I mean, seriously, I gotta say, reading the ORs is probably my favorite Civil War book. Shouldn't be the only one, but it's definitely one of my favorites. But wait, there's more! No, seriously, there's more? There's more? There is. And finally, at the end of all this, I must note that an additional 100 volumes of previously unpublished reports were published by Broadfoot Publishing Company in Wilmington, North Carolina from 1995 to 1999, and it was called the Supplement to the Official Records of the Union and Confederate Armies. And so combine those 100 new volumes to the still unpublished mountains of field reports still in boxes at the National Archives, this story will keep being updated, and we might find new narratives and improve the accuracy of others, and do so much more, exposing the truth and the true story and the finite details that is the American Civil War. And so there it is. I got it in it there. Obviously, there is a little bit more to the story than that, but I recommend you guys do your deep dive, do some research. And if you haven't already, especially those who are kind of dabbling into Civil War research, you're reading books, you really enjoy reading books, I strongly recommend that you go and you deep dive into the official records. They're available online. They're available multiple different places. You know, those of you who like to actually read books, most libraries, well, I should say most, a lot of libraries have a version of the ORs. Personally, for me, I like to do the digital copies to where I can just Control F, keyword search a name or a unit or whatever I'm looking for, and I can just scroll through thousands of pages in seconds and look or find what I'm looking for. If you want to support what we do, go ahead, go to theresearcharsenal.com and join one of the fastest growing Civil War research communities on the internet. We have the largest digital collection of searchable letters on the entire internet. We have thousands of Civil War photos tagged with every item in the photo. We have all of the federal ordnance returns, quarterly ordnance returns that you can look up your favorite federal regiment, figure out exactly what they're issued. We have microfilm from the National Archives. We have so much to add to the story that you're already looking for. And as we always say, let Ancestry tell you who fought in the Civil War. Let the Research Arsenal tell you how. And of course, until next time, happy searching.